Alright, I'm just checking everything is going fine. We're going to start in a second, and it'll all be action stations from then on. Alright, we're going to get started. This is probably going to take, I would say, about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. For anybody who wants to ask questions, I'm certainly going to answer those questions during the live stream. Near the end, as I've pointed out in the comments section, by all means start logging your questions if you have questions right now, so that I can get through them and they're ready to sort of go as soon as I get to the end of the presentation. Now, what I'm covering today is the Warlock and their proficient skills, which doesn't sound very exciting, but as I do with all of my videos, I will answer questions that are unrelated to the topic that I am covering near the end. So just because I'm not covering something fancy about the Warlock and I'm just covering their proficient skills, that doesn't mean I won't answer other questions about the Warlock if I'm able to. So we're going to get started in a second. I see there's a couple of people in the room. Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons 5e. And we're going to go through the process of actually how to play D&D 5e or Dungeons and Dragons 5e. And I'm covering the Warlock today. This is Warlock Basics number 5, and I'm going to talk about their proficient skills. Now, I will be using the Warlock pre-made character sheet that you can find on the Dungeons and Dragons website. That is the pre-made character sheet for the Warlock on the official Dungeons and Dragons website. And that particular character sheet, which I will stick up right now so you can see it, is easily available. I believe there are character sheets for the Warlock that go from level 1 right through to level 10. So if you are wondering, can I just grab a pre-made character sheet? Yes, you certainly can. But if I'm starting to roll any dice or talk about anything in particular, which we will do, we are going to make some checks and roll some dice today. It isn't just going to be me talking. Now, if you want to find additional information on the Warlock, you will be able to find the proficient skills on page 107 of the Player's Handbook, and you can find the details for what their proficient skills are. Now, this doesn't include any proficiencies or proficient skills you would pick up from your background, which of course you've got a lot more scope for. I'm just covering the class proficient skills for the Warlock. And even if the character sheet doesn't have a proficient skill in a particular area, I'm still going to carry through and make checks and rolls as if I were doing it anyway. Now, Warlocks have two specialties when it comes to skills. That is knowledge and social manipulation. Now, not social interaction so much, although they could use persuasion even if they're not proficient. They could utilize that skill if they wanted to. They would have a high charisma, so that wouldn't be an issue. But really, they focus on specific knowledges and social manipulation. Warlocks are proficient in the following skills if you select them. That is Arcana, which is very important, and you really need to pick that one up. Just like I said with the Wizard, it is one of the key things you need to have if you're going to play a Warlock. It makes no sense not to have it. Unless, of course, you've got some particular reason why you're not picking it up, and maybe it's because you've decided to take a background that will get you Arcana in the background rather than as a class proficiency. The next one is Deception, History, Intimidation, Investigation, Nature, Religion, and I'm also going to point out the skill Perception. Now, every single class it's really important, even if they're not proficient in Perception. Perception is always incredibly important for any class, And this is because it is the most used skill out of all the skills that you have available to you, and it's always very sensible to either try and pick it up or just be aware that you are going to be using it a lot. It's not one of those things that just sort of sits on the side and you never get to use it ever. Now, Arcana is your ability to recall spells, magic items, maybe the ability to determine some sort of dark ritual, magical traditions, information on the planes and the multiverse, and monsters. Even things such as demons and devils might be an area that you have a good focus on, which is why you would have Arcana. Or maybe you know a lot about the Fae, or maybe you just know a lot about otherworldly beings. The next skill is Deception, which is your ability to mislead others, your ability to lie to somebody, disguise yourself as something else or someone else, or con people. History is basically just remembering historical events. Intimidation is your ability to threaten another person or people or creatures through your verbal communication and physical actions. This is one of the tricky ones. The intimidation skill, which is a proficiency for a warlock, and warlocks really don't look that intimidating, so you've got to go out of your way to do something else to make them look intimidating, otherwise it just doesn't come off very well. Investigation is their ability to make deductions, just like I said with the wizard, based on the clues they might have access to, such as traps, their ability to determine something that's hidden, like a hidden object, a door that's been hidden, or a hidden panel, things like that. Also, just remember that investigation is also your ability to just make deductions about anything, and you can utilize that not just for the things I've just talked about. Nature, your ability to recall lore about terrain or the environment you're in, plants and animals, or flora and fauna. Your ability to forecast the weather, or your ability to remember a particular storm that might have occurred many years ago, or the types of storms that occur in an area. Your ability to understand and know about the natural cycles. The next skill would be religion, your ability to recall the laws of some deity or god, or even maybe your patron, special rites, or even dark rites. Your ability to prayers, your ability to make a prayer, holy and unholy symbols or practices, special rituals that are of a religious nature or practices, or even some sort of dark ritual or religious practice, maybe a cult of some kind. Perception, as I said, with all the skills, pretty clear. It's your ability to basically detect anything with your skills. So I have just rattled off a whole lot of different information, which is all very well, but let's put it into practice, because that is what we're here for. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't be here at all. You'd be here for some other reason. Let us make some dice rolls and give you some examples about how you can use these in your game. So I'm going to use a 20-sided dice. Your skill checks are always going to be based off a 20-sided dice. I'm going to use the blue one. In the case that I need to roll disadvantage or advantage, then I'll grab the light blue dice. But at this present time, I don't think I'll need to do that, which is awesome for me. So I'm going to start off with something like Arcana. So our first port of call is we've got a little situation here. The adventurers are in a tavern. Let's call it the Dog's Bollocks, because that seems to be a name that, well, it's a real tavern where I live, so why not use it? And the Warlock over here, which is designated by the fellow with the green slimy book thing, or magical book thing. We've got our wizard in the party over by the fireplace. We've got the rogue over here by a table, and our cleric is over here along with the fighter. And it's at this point that somebody comes into the room, into the tavern, walks on through, comes through, and of course everybody who's in the tavern is going to want to sort of turn around and have a look and see who it is. And for you, one of the first things you might be able to do is, okay, is this somebody who knows something about magic? Is there something obvious about this particular individual that might give away something about them? Now, you can use something like Insight as a check, but I'm going to use something like Arcana, simply because it's an easy way to sort of move things along. So try to identify somebody as maybe a magic user or a wizard of some kind. So you grab your 20-sided dice, which I have here, and then you look at your Arcana skill, and for this particular Warlock, it's only a +3. So I'm going to just roll my dice. I rolled a 16, add the 3, and that comes to 19. So it's pretty high. So by looking at that particular individual, you can determine they have robes, they're not wearing armor, they're bald, of a certain age, sort of indicates that, one, they have like maybe a small dagger at their hand and a staff, and you notice that hanging from their side is a book, and it's not in a pouch, and you know from the symbols on the front of that book that that particular book is of some kind of magical nature. So you can then determine, well, this person probably knows something about magic. They might be wearing around their neck some sort of pendant or emblem, which indicates that they are part of a school of magic. Maybe they're part of a local wizard school, and that's one way of making a check. But there are many different ways that you can make a check. Even your ability to look, say, at a distance and determine, well, maybe this book that they got hanging from their side isn't just magical. It's of a special nature. It's high elf magic of some kind, and you can tell because of the emblems and the relief that's been cut into the front of the leather-bound book. So one way of making a skill check, and I'm gonna just point out that you are the type of character who really wants to be, really a warlock is a sort of character who would really want to be a wizard, but maybe they just couldn't enter that particular school of magic. They didn't pass the tests, they weren't smart enough, so they form a pact with a patron who gives them power. Okay, next let's go into, say, something like deception was the next skill. So moving on, just have this little fellow move on and off screen. Next we have somebody like the tavern owner who is serving drinks. It's a burly dwarf, and he's handing out ale. And the first thing that your warlock decides to do is, takes the ale after paying for it, and it's like starts walking off, looks in the cup, and decides, well, actually I don't want to pay for this ale. Instead, what I want to do is try to pretend that there's something wrong with it, so that I get a free ale and I don't have to pay for anything. So we're going to try to deceive and lie to our tavern owner. Why not? It's what warlocks do best. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just reach into my pocket once the tavern owner leaves the room. So you wait until the tavern owner leaves the room to maybe bring out some more food or some nuts, or grab a drink, so you don't have to worry about making a sleight of hand check, or even making a stealth check to disguise that you are moving something and dropping a dead fly into the drink. So when the tavern owner comes back, you turn around and say, "Oh, I just looked in my ale. There's a fly in here. You're not serving flies in ale, are you?" And tavern owner, this is your opportunity to make a deception check, because you're trying to lie to them. So roll your 20-sided dice. Now this particular character sheet that I've got here doesn't have proficiency in deception. So instead of looking for the skill, we're going to go straight for the ability modifier, which is charisma. So it's a +3. So I rolled an 18 plus 3. That's a 21. So it's pretty high, and that's going to be contested by an insight check by our tavern owner. Now our tavern owner probably doesn't have any modifier whatsoever, it's just going to be a straight roll. So I'm going to roll this dice here to represent our tavern owner. So I rolled an 11. So 21 is certainly greater than 11. When you're doing a contest like this is what it is. We're trying to use one skill against another skill that an NPC or a monster has. You need to get greater than. You can't get equal to or greater than. You have to get greater than. If you get the same value, it's going to be a tie, it's a standoff, there's no progress whatsoever. But we are successful, and the tavern owner says, "Oh, look, I'm really sorry. Look, have your money back, and I'll get you another ale for free." And so, voila, the the Warlock has got one drink for free, and you know, obviously as long as they don't try to duplicate the same ruse multiple times, you won't have to do something like apply disadvantage. I mean, as a dungeon master, I would probably start applying disadvantage if you keep doing something like this. Okay, so that's one part of it, and now let's move on and look at the next skill on our checklist, which is history. And maybe you see on the wall a painting. You turn over here and you look on the wall, and there's a painting, and it's a depiction of a giant dragon, a big red dragon that's just swooping down onto a small village and breathing fire. And you realise, this looks familiar. I kind of recognise this scene from something I remember from reading my books. And there's something, I'm sure it's related to history. So this is what we do. So we'll grab our dice and re-roll it. And I rolled only a 6. And we look for history. This character does not have proficiency in history. Now, history is an intelligence-based skill, so we just look straight at our intelligence modifier, which is +1. So I only get a 7. And you're like, oh, no, I can't place it. Now, something like a 7 is probably not good enough to remember much of anything. I would say a 10, if you get a DC 10 on your check for your skill check, you probably remember maybe the basics around it. If you know, you get like a 15 or a 20, you would know a lot more. So that's one example of making a check for history. Okay, right, so now we have a guard, the watchman. The night watchman's coming in with his little lantern, knocks on the door, enters and says, is all well, I'm just checking, doing my rounds, how are you doing, has there been any trouble? I have heard that there's been a burglar that has been raiding the locals around here. And you know, the Warlock turns around and says, oh no, I haven't seen anything. Don't know what you're talking about. But why don't you just check around the back of the building? Maybe that would be the best place. Everything's fine in here. So our little guard or night watchman enters and goes back out. Goes through and is checking the outside of the building. So we're going to come back to him because he's going to be important. Intimidation. So let's decide, okay, it's one of those things where somebody else comes into the bar. And like all things, there's always somebody who will ruffle somebody's feathers. And we have like a nobleman. A nobleman who, we won't even go into the intricacies of that particular character. But he comes in and he moves over to the bar and says, you, move along, get out of my way. Scum like you don't belong in here in a place like this. And of course our Warlock takes offence to this. And this is an opportunity to use our intimidation and do some threats. So maybe you cast a spell, or maybe you've got makeup on, or maybe you do something that's sort of quite intimidating. Maybe you just stare them down. Maybe you say something like to them like, why don't you just truck off, you snobby nosed fart. And this would be an opportunity to make an intimidation check. Maybe you get right up in his face. So we'll roll out 20-sided dice. I rolled an 8. This particular character does have proficiency intimidation. So I get, it's a 5 for the intimidation, plus 8, comes to a grand total of 12. It's not very high. This is going to be contested by our nobleman, who's going to make a roll. So I'll grab that light coloured dice again. And we're going to use, I think, in this case, the easiest way to sort of figure out a contest between intimidation and our nobleman being threatened is using insight. Okay, easiest way, and we'll make it a straight roll. The nobleman doesn't have a high, it's just a normal sort of character, right? So straight roll, and I rolled a 15. Now, obviously a 15 is greater than the 13 that the Warlock got for their intimidation. So it's unsuccessful, and the Warlock just does not get anywhere, and the nobleman just turns straight to the barkeep and orders his drink, doesn't even pay attention. So you, like I said, with a contest, to be successful, you must get greater than whatever the opposing skill check is. Very, very simple. Okay, so we've done that. Alright, so next thing, we're going to have a look at investigation. Now remember that nightman that was paroling around the tavern, looking around the back? Well, what they don't know is out the back there's a burglar who's managed to get through the back door and is starting to rip things off and making sure that they can't be seen, and comes back out with his load of goodies. Our night watchman comes around the corner and spots him, and then okay, all right, there's a problem. There's a bit of a chase on around the back of the tavern. Okay, so all of that taking place, we have our nightman yelling out, "Burglar! Burglar! Thief! Come back! Stop! Halt!" And of course, this is where our tavern owner will have a look around the back, wondering what all the commotion's all about. See our burglar running past the window and the patrolman, and notice that a whole lot of things have gone missing. So they disappear. Who knows where they've gone to? Maybe we'll come back to them. Maybe we won't. But this is where the tavern owner is like, somebody's burgled me, and you could offer your services as a warlock using your investigation to make deductions based on the clues that have been left. So going around the back, if provided the tavern owner is amenable to checking the location, look, do you mind if I have a look around the back? Maybe I can find out sort of what took place and how they got in. And so, yep, he says yes. He stays with the warlock, and the warlock has a look around. So this is what you would do: is roll your 20-sided dice. We're making an investigation check. This particular character doesn't have proficiency in investigation, but it is a proficient skill for a warlock. Roll your 20-sided dice, and investigation is a intelligence-based skill. So if you don't have a proficiency in the skill, just go for the modifier for intelligence. Okay, it's a +1, so I rolled a 2, +1. So unfortunately, the warlock's not able to figure out how the burglar got in. Looks around, can't figure it out. So you have to get a decent score to be able to understand what's taking place. The chances are very easy is somebody just looks around and, okay, somebody's stolen some stuff, or if there's obvious marks on the door, then a DC 5 would be easy. But this was much worse. This is like he only got a 3 on his check. A 10 would indicate maybe that they've noticed there are sort of smaller marks around the door if they haven't pried it open with a crowbar. A 15 or 20 might indicate that they can tell that the lock has been tampered with, and that's how they've broken in. Or if you're looking at a 25 or 30, now we're starting to talk about somebody like Sherlock Holmes. Really complicated information. Okay, so investigation's been highlighted to you. So we'll move back out, come back out, and we continue on with our tavern scene. Okay, so nature. One of the things that's great about using a warlock is the fact they have so many intelligence-based skills, not just charisma, but lots of information. So they can fulfill the information bank that a wizard would have, or even a rogue. I mean, rogues often have a lot of skills, but the wizard is the one who knows a lot about stuff. So you can also fill that role even if you won't have quite as many as the wizard. So let's make a nature check. Now, as I said, that's to recall information about weather and animals, plants, terrain, natural cycles. So at this point, the warlock decides to go outside, has Lock out the door, and notices that there are some clouds, and can determine by looking at the clouds that they are quite dark, they are low-lying, and that they are moving over a mountain range. And so we are going to make a nature check. This particular character doesn't have proficiency in that area, but it doesn't matter. We just roll the dice. Okay, so I rolled a 10. We add, now nature is a intelligence-based skill, so we just use the modifier for intelligence, so because they're not proficient. This particular character sheet isn't. So it's 10 plus 1 is 11. And they are able to determine, well, look, those low-lying clouds are probably going to move over the mountain range or the hills, and they're going to drop. It's going to rain shortly. So this is one way you can use your nature skill. You could also supplement that with something like survival if you wanted to. Okay, so the next thing, let's do a religion check. And that'll probably be one of the last things we actually utilise for this particular session. But maybe you are able to recall the holy symbol hanging round the cleric's neck, and you can make a check to see if you can figure out and identify whose holy symbol that might be based on what you see. So you roll your dice, and I got a 9. You add your religion check modifier, and in this case it's actually proficient, this character, in this particular skill. It's got a +3, so 9 plus 3 is 12. So you know that the deity that the symbol that's hanging round the cleric's neck is for, surprisingly, it's for Asmodeus. And you think, that's a bit odd. Why is he wearing a symbol for Asmodeus? But you wouldn't know necessarily anything more. You might be able to identify it, getting at least a DC 10, DC 15, maybe you know a little bit more, and as I said, it'll truck on from there, knowing additional information based on what you roll. Okay, perception checks. I've done so many perception checks in my videos, and look, all that is to determine if something is going on around you. So whether that be sight, smell, hearing, even touch might be useful in some situations. So I will make a quick check. Let's say you could swear that you can smell something burning, but you're having trouble figuring out where it's coming from. So we're going to make a perception check. I rolled a 20. Okay, now this particular character is not proficient in perception, but it doesn't matter. As I said, perception is really important for all of the classes. So all you need to do is look at your wisdom modifier. So I've got no modifier for my wisdom. It's just a 0. So it's just going to be a straight 20. Now a 20 on a skill check is not it's not an automatic success. Okay, it just means it's 20. But you're able to figure out, following your nose, moving around the room, you're like, there's a smell coming from over here, and like, oh, and you can see what's happened. The wizard's gown has caught fire from the hearth and is starting to singe and smoke. And you say, look out, you're on fire. So that is a simple way of using your perception skill as a warlock. Even though you're not proficient, I realise that a warlock is not proficient in the skill, but that's fine. So that is all of the different skills that a warlock could utilise, and I've given you some examples just with a small scenario. If you found this video helpful or informative, look, just share and like the video, that'd be great. If you're not already subscribed and you like the sort of content, I do videos pretty much every day. Most of my content is live streamed. So click the subscribe button. Beside the subscribe button on my channel, there's a bell button, and if you press that, you will get notifications when I'm doing another video. You'll also be notified when I'm doing another live stream, so you can come and watch and join, ask questions, things like that. Now, if you have any questions about this whole process, I'm going to start answering those questions shortly in the live stream. If you're not present for the live stream, I will answer any of your questions that you have down in the comments related to the warlock. I want to try to focus more on their proficiency skills, but I will answer other questions. I usually do anyway. If you want to support my channel, then watching my videos is great. I get a small amount of ad revenue from AdSense or YouTube, although it seems to be diminishing with all of the changes with YouTube. I also I don't do Patreon, but I have an affiliate link down in the description where you can buy things online. I get a small commission, you pay exactly the same price, and you can go through that link. You don't even have to buy that thing, you can go and search for something else and buy something else. I get supported because I get a small commission off it, and as I said, you pay the same price. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, don't run away, people. If you guys want to start chatting, I am happy to talk about anything related to the Warlock. I want to focus on the skills, but if there are other questions related to the Warlock, I will answer those questions now. If you have questions that are unrelated to the Warlock, maybe as a player or a dungeon master, I'm happy to answer those questions. That might give me an idea for another video. Can be very helpful sometimes, so it's not lost on me. Even though the actual presentation for the live stream is over, you are welcome to ask questions to your heart's content. I will try to hang around for the next 10 minutes, unless people are sort of obviously leaving the room and don't seem to have anything they want to ask. Just need a drink of water, hang on. Oh, I think another drink of water will help. I think I just about talked for half an hour. Oh, almost lost my voice. Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat, which sort of suggests to me that nobody has any questions regarding the Warlock. As I said, I will answer questions that are unrelated to skill checks and skill proficiencies for a Warlock if you want to. For those of you who are wondering what's going on with the channel, I have done a few things while I'm waiting for somebody to make a comment in the chat box. I've done a few things with Twitch. I have started putting up my live stream home game on a Friday that we play. It's now available, so you can watch it on Twitch TV. I believe it is in the About section, so you can click on and find out what the channel name is. It's not currently called How to D&D, it's called Frederick Wheeler 129. That's temporary, it will change. I'm just in the process of testing everything. And that means I'm going to be scheduled for Twitch TV every Friday at 7:30 through to about 11 PM if I can. New Zealand Standard Time, so that's Friday, every Friday, 7:30 PM through to 11 PM. New Zealand Standard Time, I'll be live, and you can listen and watch me and my group play Storm King's Thunder. So if you're wanting to, I know a lot of people enjoyed that and they really wanted to sort of at least see how I did it or hear how I do it. Usually I don't point the camera at myself or the others because I don't like that, but I will point it at the miniatures on the table, and the sound's been pretty good. I was actually surprised how successful running the live stream off my cell phone was, because I don't run the game in my own home, it's in somebody else's home, so carting a lot of gear around is really, really hard. I have been working on a new video which is to show you how to make your own homemade blank, rewritable or dry erase battle mat or battle map, because one of those things, it's really expensive sometimes, you know. You can actually make one of those things fairly cheaply, it's not very difficult to do. The next video with the Warlock in mind, for those of you who are more interested in what's going on with the Warlock basics, I'm chopping my way slowly through everything that is available. I don't want to necessarily talk about the otherworldly patron features, because it would require really too many videos to cover all of that. What we're talking about there are all of the archetypes. Literally, I don't think the basics are going to work for that particular section. What I will be focusing on is I will be talking about the types of spells that are going to be useful to you as the Warlock. I already sort of answered part of that question at the end of our live stream for the Warlock, and I thought, well, actually that's a very sensible thing to cover, talking about the types of spells that a Warlock might want to pick up, because you have so few that you can learn. It would be a good idea to know which ones are the good ones to have. So that's likely to be the next video for the Warlock. That'll probably be tomorrow as a live stream. I'm going to try to target for the same time, so that would be 3 PM tomorrow, New Zealand Standard Time. So that's 3 PM New Zealand Standard Time will be hopefully the next Warlock basics, and it'll cover the types of spells you might want to select as the Warlock, for those of you who want to know. After that, we will be talking about Mystic Arcanum. and we're going to, there are sort of a couple of points as you level up that Mystic Arcanum is important, so we're definitely going to be talking about that in another video. We're going to be talking about the Eldritch Master at some point as well, probably be the last video in the series. In terms of anything else related to our trusty Warlock, in terms of what I'm going to cover, what I'm going to talk about, how we're going to encapsulate as much as possible in terms of the information that's available in the player's handbook, I don't think that I'm necessarily going to do 10 videos for the Warlock. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a smaller series, unless people have a particular thing that they really want me to focus on. Otherwise, I just feel like the series would be longer than it needed to be, just for the sake of trying to make 10 videos or 10 live streams. Hopefully that makes sense to people. Just grab another drink of water. There we go. Okay, so I don't see any questions. We're almost at 10 minutes, and I'm running out of information to talk about, so I think maybe this is a good point to stop if there's no questions and nobody has anything they want to ask about. For those of you who are wondering, who might have missed the full live stream, this live stream will be available once the live stream ends in about half an hour to an hour. YouTube takes about that long to process the live stream before it's available to the public, and I will try to make sure I tidy everything up in terms of making sure you know when the video starts, and just making sure it's nice and neat and tidy so you can get to it. I won't be necessarily editing this video straight away. You might have noticed I've been quite slow in the editing process. This is because I'm actually busy doing other things, and I can't sort of designate. I don't do this full time. It's not my it's not gonna pay the bills, so I can't designate too much time. But when I get the opportunity, I will come back to this video. I will chop it down and give you an edited version, so you don't have to watch the whole 40 minutes or 38 minutes that are currently running right now. Remember, there's also a feature on YouTube when you're watching a video where you can, when you're replaying it, that you can speed it up. It might turn me into Alvin the Chipmunk to listen to, but if you find that more useful to you, you can speed it up by about 2 times, I believe. Although I will sound like a chipmunk of some kind, and possibly, I'm going for Alvin because I used to like Alvin more than the other ones. Well, then, no, yeah, it was Alvin. He was always the highlight, really. Okay, so this video is not about chipmunks. But yeah, there's no questions there. Everybody seems to sort of be pretty quiet. I'm going to sign off here and let you guys get on with things. And I better get busy. I've got a lot of work to do, editing and trimming things down. But it's been good, and we'll see you next time, tomorrow.